Merci beaucoup. I will speak on labor market policy and the transformation in digital economy in Germany. And I wrote a long paper for the Left Party and trying to summarize different research projects, not only my own, but my own on Industry 4.0, an internal change of labor market policy on the dualized German labor market. And I will give you some flavor of the main results. The first point is why do we actually speak of transformation and not just structural change as in the past? And I see a substantial difference between both. Structural change, which happens always and happens in the past, is a shift of number of employees in the sectors and between the sectors, and it's a result of many independent market decisions. And what is transformation? Transformation is upheaval as a result of several simultaneous trends, digitalization and decarbonization. And secondly, what is very important is it is intended and sought from the end with a very long time horizon. And the time horizon is to the reduction of CO2 emissions by 2050. And this means it's cover several generations of employees, and labor market policy cannot just cover the present generation, but also future generations. And the transformation is a bet on future innovation capacity, because we don't have all technical solutions already ready, and the willingness to innovate. And it also involves changes in the way of our production and also of our living. To understand where are the problematic problems for workers in the transformation, I try to map different forms of labor market dynamics in the transformation. The first is a numerical. This means less hours are asked for. So internally, you could reduce working hours to keep workers on board. And externally means you have too many workers on board, say in a company, and they have to, some of them have to leave voluntarily or involuntarily. The second is the functional change. This means internally, the job content is changing, you are placed to another job. So it's a question of retraining. And the same happens if you have to go to another company and get a different kind of activity. And the monetary aspect is extremely important because there might be a change of the remuneration within the company, or if you change the company. I put this in red because this is the most problematic part of within the transformation in Germany. And this is a figure showing what happens if you change your occupation. In Germany, most people are skilled workers, skilled in an occupation. And in red means if you involuntarily change your occupation, which is in most cases, nearly all cases, linked with external change. This means changing the company. Then you lose a lot of money. And this is really one of the basic points behind the fears of many workers concerning the transformations. They fear to lose a job in a good company, which is covered by a collective agreement, and they would get a new job in a company which is not covered by a collective agreement, and this would mean substantial pay loss. And I will come back to this. Therefore, pay is an important point. And what is very important for our subject, the quality of work, is that the research shows that pay is a proxy for other working conditions. There's an accumulation of risk. If you get a new job which is badly paid, it also means that you have health and occupational problems there, and working conditions are harder, more intensive control, loss of autonomy. This is quite clear that this is a very important proxy. So the first point is internal transformation. And I think concerning internal transformation, there are real good possibilities in Germany, at least the medium-sized and big companies, for unions, for works councils to use their co-determination in shaping this internal change. And we have strong rights, strong employment protection, and the co-determination is very important. We have in Germany about 170,000 works councillors. 8,000 are completely released from work. They are full-time representatives in companies. And so this is really a substantial resource for unions. And the unions really invest a lot of training in the training and in advising these works councillors. But the problem is these resources are often not used in a good way, neither by employers nor by unions. And our biggest union, IG Metall, did a survey of 2,000 works councillors, and the result was that in many companies there's not a very systematic, forward-looking personal planning and only in 14% of the companies there's a systematic assessment of qualification needs, which means action takes place when it's often too late. And the central task is, of course, to use these resources to avoid redundancies through internal transfers, to further training or increase initial training, through temporary reductions in working hours, or social plans. Also, you can organize an external transfer to other companies under better conditions than just firing people. And so the focus of unions also on partly of public policy is to enable the internal actors to find good solutions for the problems and to develop a forward-looking HR policy. And I did some research on one of the big projects. It was called Work for Zero North Rhine-Westphalia. And the state of North Rhine-Westphalia financed some consultants for companies, and the union set up an own team, and the Work for Zero team identified companies with proactive works councillors and an interested management, and both signed a letter of commitment. And then with the help of consultants, workshops took place in 90 companies with the help of consultants, and there was a stock taking of digitalization in all departments, and the employees were involved as experts of their workplaces. And problems were like skill deficits, or also too much tight technical control, work pace, etc., were mapped, and then they were signed in about 35 of the 90 companies, so-called future agreements, and they set up parity commissions to deal with the problems which were mapped, and in some cases retraining was started or training was increased. I don't go too much in detail now. I described that in an earlier presentation at an earlier conference here, and the IG Metall now wants to mainstream this experience. And what they decided on their congress in 2019 is that in future their full-time officials and also the works council should be trained as change promoters, and there are kick-off meetings in all regions and locals, and now they are identified projects, change projects with mixed teams of works councillors and of full-time officials. And this could be a regional project. It could be improving the initial vocational training. It could be other issues. And in May this year, there was a big congress with 1,000 change promoters, and each participant got to know 3 other projects of in other regions. So that's really changing the whole internal structure of the unions and their activities. And the focus is really use our excellent internal resources we have through the German system for implementation. Yes, external change is much more difficult, and there the labor market policy comes in, and with the Hartz laws, which you might at least you heard the name, um, the direction of the German labor market policy changed completely. Until 2000, we had a clear train first approach, and then with the Hartz laws, it was that, well, the problem is not training. We have enough work. And we should have and the new paradigm workforce was introduced, so real pressures on unemployed to take the first job, and training was substantially cut, and what remained was fast food training, without really increasing the skills, but then we had shortages since 2007, and we have a slow paradigm change because the German labor market is based on skilled workers, and we have had strong, we still have strong skill bottlenecks, and we have a slow break with the Hartz reforms, and so the coalition agreement of the present government really completed this paradigm change. We have now a clear first train approach, and I don't go into details, but there are many things still to be realized in this coalition. But here you can see in red how that especially retraining of unemployed, which is ending with the certificates. This might be up to 2 years retraining into a new occupation, fully financed by the employment office. It went down from 143 to 34,000, and now it's increasing again. So if you get unemployed, you really have the chance to learn a new occupation. I come to the wages, and Germany was known to have a very inclusive labor market with low wage differentials between small and medium-sized and big companies. This was possible through our industry-wide collective agreements, and here you can see the decreasing coverage by collective agreements in Germany. This means many companies left the employers associations. They are not bound by the collective agreement, or new small companies, especially small companies, never entered the employers association. So we have substantial wage differentials. You can see it's it's up to 27% between covered and non-covered companies, and the gap is even higher in manufacturing, where we have good wages. And now you can understand why people are afraid of if somebody is speaking of transformation, they are afraid that this means that they lose a good job, and they really lose income. And therefore, I think a main political issue for a just transition is to increase the coverage by collective agreements, and this, I think, the extension of collective agreements is the major instrument, and also prevailing wage laws. And in the coalition agreement, we now have a clear agreement of the parties that there will be a prevailing wage laws for all public orders, for all federal contracts, and this is in preparation, and this might really change the wage structure. And what I said in the beginning is the transformation is a multi-generational project. This means initial training is very important. 61% of German employees have a vocational training certificate, and about 4.5% are apprentices in our national dual system. We have 323 national occupations. The training lasts between 2 and 4 years, mostly 3 years. And the idea is a very broad training, which helps to cope with changing working environment. And what is very important, this has really substantial impacts on the quality of work. If you have a broad skills, this changes work organization, you have less supervisors and more autonomy in the work. And this is the principle of this our apprenticeship system. And we have a reform of the occupations. They are modernized in a very fast way. And I cannot go into all details. But what is very important, in 2021, there were introduced joint minimum standards on cross-cutting issues. This means digitalization, sustainability, etc. So it's clear that in all our occupations, these cross-cutting standards have to be implemented in the coming years if these occupations are modernized. So this gives you probably a flavor of the different areas, so I think a socially balanced transformation can only succeed with a bundle of measures, and the focus on further education alone is not sufficient, which is an important message, because that's the position usually neoliberals say, yeah, some training will solve the problems. It's not true. It will take more than 30 years, and this means you need politically stable guardrails and not hectic short-term programs, which is difficult to implement if you have all 4 years elections. And what is needed is an experimentalism. This means you have to try out new politics, learning. You have to learn from experience and mutual learning, which especially takes place concerning the internal transformation, and IG Metall and other unions really try to support this mutual learning between the works councillors in different companies. And I think the acceptance of the transformation by the population will be decided by the distribution issues. If people are losing money, then they will not support the transformation. And the biggest problem of the transformation in Germany is not the skill deficit. We have answers to this, but the dualization of the labor market. Thank you very much.